Hey, what is up everyone? Welcome back to another video, and today I'm taking a look at something extremely unique and extremely exciting and at the same time super awesome. This is the 1/20th scale Frosty Cat by Strangeworks, a company that used to be or is still currently known as Nielsen Works. So they would have done a bunch of bootleg perfect grade kits before, that's all I know about them really. And this, as far as I can tell, is a 100% brand new design by themselves, and it is incredible, it is awesome, it's almost perfect grade Gundam sized, and it has blown me away. However, I will mention there is one caveat about it, mine ended up a little bit defective. But yeah, grabbing this kit means that this video would not have been possible without a sponsor, so... This video would not have been possible without Raid Shadow Legends, and can you believe it's Raid's 3rd year anniversary? That's 3 whole years of Raid. I still remember my first time playing Raid, getting a team together, rushing through some levels, until the point you get defeated, and then grind again, until you get even more and more better heroes. And since then, Raid has come a long way. The heart of this game is the heroes, and Raid have added more and more over the years. And not just new heroes, new factions as well, including the Shadowkin. With Samurai and Oni, one of my favorite factions, without a doubt. And if the team of heroes of yours have just gotten too strong for the main campaign, they added the Doom Tower, and of course the newest and biggest addition to Raid, the Hydra. So what is new in Raid for the 3rd anniversary? Well, they're adding new champions, new artifact sets, and a fully personalized video showcasing every player's Raid journey and their own personal achievements. So that means there's never been a better time to get started. If you use my link or use that QR code right here, then new players will get a free starter pack worth almost $40. We're talking free champions Misery Cord, Tiger Soul, and Romero, 10 Magic XP Brews, 10 Force XP Brews, and 10 Spirit XP Brews. And because it's Raid's birthday, all new and existing players can get a bunch of free gifts worth over $25. Once you're in the game, just use the promo code 3YearsRaid to get your hands on everything. So first off, as usual, we're going to be talking about the build. Now, this really impressed me and was so different to anything I had ever built before. I actually decided to do what I did with the Strike Freedom and do a bit of a build log. So first off, I was going to just unbox it and build it, then voice it over as usual. But, you know, it was too unique, too cool. So I will mention first, this comes with a whole lot of plastic in the box, so you'll be building for quite some time. I managed to get it out in one day, but if you actually spend some time on it, this will last you a while. Anyway, on to that build log. So I decided to do a bit of a build log. Now, I'm a whole leg and a half through this already, but that's why I decided to do it, because just kind of going over the build, when it's finished, I'll probably forget a whole lot about this. This is ridiculously impressive. So far, this is blowing my mind, so let's just talk about it a little bit. So every single part I've put on this, besides the bottom of the foot, has been absolutely perfect, like pretty much 100% flush. Just pops on as simple as that, clips on, and honestly, like, I always compare things to whether or not they're Bandai quality, and this is close to a perfect grade in quality without a single doubt. I've had zero fitting issues whatsoever, nothing's been difficult to clean up at all. Actually, everything has been absolutely spectacular. I'm blown away. Just talking about a couple of the fits here, this is just a bit of the foot. It just slides on absolutely seamlessly. Tight as well. It's actually one of those kits that the one time I actually found something a little bit difficult to attach, it had turned out I had actually put this little knee segment right here inside of this armor somehow by accident. But everything is phenomenal. There's some very nice detailed aspects to this that, well, in a way, once again, is kind of on par with Bandai's kits. For example, this little segment right here, this piece of armor sandwiches over it, and the gray actually comes through, which is always a nice little bit of detail. So instead of actually one layer, two layer, and then a third little bit of detail, it just comes through, and that's so smart. In here we do have 2 shades of blue, so that's the dark one we've seen down on the foot, and we've got a bunch of these little triangular sections which attach on here. I guess one cool thing about going through the build while building this is you can see that there is detail inside of it. There's almost a kind of like vent looking aspect under there. So if you wanted to use that in subsequent builds or something different, or maybe it's suggesting that there's going to be an update for this sometime in the future. This is very nice. I'll throw up some more pictures of what the inner frame of this was looking like while I was putting it together, because I wasn't actually planning on filming this bit, but we'll go through the rest of the parts while I build them. Anyway, let's finish this off. So continuing on a little bit, so everything to here you build twice in the kind of Bandai sort of way, or general model kit kind of way. And it's only beyond this then that you actually build what makes it a left or a right leg. If you wonder what the bit of masking tape is for, is the piston segments are actually loose between building parts, so that kept falling off on me, and I missed one in the foot earlier on, and don't want to do that again. So this kit does feature something similar to polycaps that you would see in a general kit like something from Bandai, but these are actually made out of a very tough PVC. Now, it's definitely a lot more robust than something you would see with a polycap, and honestly, that is something you would probably need with a kit this big. So far, they seem to be holding up, but we'll see how that turns out over time. So yeah, so far everything has been fitting like an absolute dream. No issues whatsoever, nothing catches, nothing's funky, and it all just holds very, very nicely. There's some of that inner frame, and that is beautiful. They didn't cut any corners. This is nice. I suppose an important thing to mention is the instructions here are extremely clear. I've had no issues with this either. So everything has been going along fine, and so far so good. Again, everything just fits on perfect. I have to admit, for a kit that, from what I've seen, just came out of nowhere, I am thoroughly impressed. Thoroughly impressed. The last little piece then to pop on just pops on up here like so, and there we go. That is the pair of legs finished. These are big, they're hefty, and they feature some very nice movement when they bend. Just check that out. Anyway, I'm gonna clean this mess up a little bit, because if I'm filming the build, I can't have it looking like this. There we go. Much better. So I don't know about you, but I always build my kits from the legs up regardless of what the manual says, because, well, the legs take the longest, and I like to have something kind of standing there, so that means onto the crotch. Another thing I will mention here is that the runners are very nicely labeled. So these are little cutouts like you would see once again in Bandai kits, so it means it is easy to see what runner it is and what it's made out of. This is made out of ABS. This part anyway. A lot of this kit does feature a whole bunch of undergating, if not mostly undergated for the most part, besides the parts that are, say, on pegs and stuff. So this is very nice. That does mean there will be not that many nubs on the surface of parts, and it also means that there is the potential of painting this quickly on the runner if you wanted to. For the actual tail on this model kit, we do have a piece of wire. Like, this is straight up just wire. It feels robust, and hopefully it'll work out. This is fed through a little bit of plastic, and then just mounts into this piece just like so. So that right there is what's going to hold the tail in. And there we go, both pieces attached. This is cool. So we've got a lot of these very, very small little runners, which means there's a lot of individual color separation on this kit. So, you know, if you're getting a lot of these tiny, tiny little runners, that does add to the price, which does mean this is quite impressive. However, I did, well, notice that quite a few of these parts do come a little bit scratched out of box, so you may actually have to put a little bit of time into polishing those up in order to regain the nice finish that they once would have had. Honestly though, that is super easy. I give it one run over with the Balancer by Gun Primer, which was the camera at all, and that took it right away. That's a bit of the gray side first to kind of just rub away a bit of a layer. That will get rid of the scuffing that is on it. And then just hitting it with the white side will bring it to a nice high gloss, which is what you want out of a clear part like this. So that will sort that right out for you. Very nice. So it's all saying good things, good things, good things until a bad thing happens. See this little peg right here? Missing on this side. That really sucks. It seems like it just did not get molded in the factory. And I guess, fuck me then. That's, well, I'm just gonna have to kind of cobble something together just to pop the leg on for the review, but Frosty Cat. So this kit actually comes with some options, which is really cool. The first of which is the type of kind of side skirting armory add-on. I went for the basic one right here, and I'm still in the middle of building the bigger one, which has these really cool binders. Now, I'm going to put one of these together from what I have right here, so you can see what's going on. So once again, the inside detail on the binder here is fantastic. We've got one moving part up here, but we're about to add a bunch more. And what actually slots away inside that binder is a pair of little axes. So I'm not going to be actually adding the axe bit on just yet, as I'm just kind of following the instructions to a T right at the moment. So we've got two of these sliding panel segments that attach on like so, and onto the other side in exactly the same way. Some more armor attaches on here. This part does not move. Again, everything fits on absolutely perfect flush and clicks on exactly where it needs to click. So this axe segment actually just slots down inside of all of this, just like that. And then this can close up over it, which is very, very nice, completely seamless. Got another little segment which attaches on top like this, which will close over the rest of it, just like so. Then we've got a bottom part, so that is once again 2 shades of blue on this, and then this little pivoting section right here for attaching it onto the side skirt. Awesome. However, I will mention one aspect, and that is the armor that goes on here and on here is shared with this lighter one right here. So you do kind of have to choose one or the other, or you're going to have to start swapping out parts. So now it's about time to start putting the tail together on this wire. Now I've cut out all of the parts, and there is 15 parts, not including the tip, to actually cut out, clean up, and get ready for putting on this. So it takes a minute. So they just pop onto the wire a little something like this. Ooh, thankfully that just slides on. Don't want to drill all of these. Not that I've had to drill anything on this kit so far. Everything but that one waist, debacle, has been pretty awesome so far. So that is everything attached onto this. Now I will mention that these are incredibly sharp, so when you're actually sliding the parts on, be careful that you don't stab yourself. We also have a nice clear part on the end here, and this has a nice posable wire inside of it, which is pretty cool. That is gnarly. Alright, so now we're going to be moving on to the torso a little bit. So I cut out a bunch of the parts so we could actually talk about it a little bit while I go along. So once again, we do have something similar to polycaps in here, but these are actually made out of a PVC apparently. Not that polycaps aren't, I don't know. And the main reason I actually cut all these parts out in advance is because this kit has a lot of what I refer to as runner jumping, which is actually having to go from runner to runner to runner to runner. Quite a few runners just to get the parts for one part of the body, and it just takes quite a long time to kind of organize your runners and cut everything out. Anyway, we've got some kind of drum mechanism inside the waist on this. Then this all closes in on top of that. The main reason I actually want to show a little bit of the build of the body of this, mainly because it is the core of the kit, but this kit has one of the greatest pilot figures around ever. Actually, it is the greatest pilot figure. There's the internal structure of the neck. We've got a little piston segment inside of that, so I assume that will move when we're moving the neck. That is in a different shade of gray. Actually, I can kind of see why this kit has a lot of runner jumping. It's not just a bunch of different gray parts on different runners, it's a bunch of different shades. This looks really nice. So it looks like we might be putting together a bit of an opening cockpit mechanism in here. I didn't actually know if we'd have something that opens or not to see into the absolutely fantastic pilot figure once this is all put together. But this right here is our pilot figure. They're not joking when they say Frosty Cat. It's a cat. Not only is it a cat, it's a cat with a set of nuts. Just check that out right there. Cat nuts. Anyway, so he should just pop in there. It doesn't look like he's got a console or anything, so I guess he just controls the mecha with sheer power of nuts. Actually, scratch that. This little segment that you actually put in, I thought was a door, seems to have a little bit of a set of buttons and a D-pad on it, so I guess he controls it like an old NES or something like that. Wait, there's 4 buttons. SNES. So speaking of random terms and stuff I've kind of made up, like the whole runner jumping thing, this has another issue that sometimes I find some kits have, which I refer to as the balancing act, and that's you have to keep everything balanced together before you actually snap the 2 parts together, otherwise they'll just all fall out, which can be a little bit of a pain in the arse to actually line up properly. But here we go, let's give it a go. Hopefully nothing falls out. Okay, alright. So there we go, there's the little cat pilot in there that can close up like so, and down like that. Cat cockpit. Cat cockpit. The build continues with some absolutely tiny little parts. These little arms right here. You line these up. They clip on right here onto the sides of the cockpit. And they control these little kind of side, or should I say guide, these little side parts, which allow for some outward movement of the arms, I think. I guess we'll see later. Now, the shoulders on this I've probably found the most difficult to do so far. Like, we've got a lot of moving parts in here, and a lot of them are very, very stiff. So first you actually have to build this whole little segment, attach it into this, and then try to attach it onto this once again, which is kind of just hanging on here. So basically you have that there, You need to get this big old peg into this huge hole here, but it is quite tight while keeping everything lined up perfectly, which is kind of difficult. So once you finally do get them on, I'm finding that I've got a little bit of some seams here, but I'm hoping that the armor will hold them closed once it's attached. So now it's about time to get some of this armor on. So yeah, the body was definitely a little bit more difficult than what we would have seen with the legs. So on with the armor. That is clicking on rather nice so far, and does seem to actually be holding some of those seams closed. This little segment layers on a very interesting kind of way, just popping in there. I did take a look a little further in the manual, and it seems like we do have different options for up-back, including some of the parts we saw as the waist binders. As for what we're going for right here, just following the instructions, we've got some kind of little piston-y kind of parts, like so. It's a little segment that then attaches on over them, line them up just right. And this actually gives us a nice little piece of raised armor up here. That is pretty cool. What way does this pop? On, up. On top of that, something like that. And that is pretty cool. Got a very nice piece of armor for around the neck here. That is a very nice design. Hold on. Why are you not attaching? All right. The gray part in there, right in the back, wasn't pushed in all the way, but now it seems to be working out okay-ish. So finally I actually found it, a part that actually had some bad fitting, and now that's this little segment here in the back. I've had to file down the part inside of it just to get it to slot in, and it still does not fit flush. This is pretty wonky, this little bit. So lastly, putting the chest together. This part I totally forgot somehow. But yeah, in the end, it seems like the armor does hold the actual problematic parts together, and everything just seems to be working out. This little bit is a little bit jank. Got a little bit of a part sticking out up here, and it seems like something deep inside could have been squeezed together a little bit better, but hey, so far so good, and still quite enjoyable. Oh yeah, got this here back arm part, which probably attaches something on later on, but just stick that around here into the back, just like that. So now moving on to the head, and this has relatively few parts compared to pretty much everything we've seen so far, so I can probably just literally build this as I go along. So we've got half a head, one of the PVC style polycaps right there. We've got a clear green piece, which will make up both of the eyes. And then that is the basic gist of the internal structure of the head. Just pop that together, holds together nicely. Then we've got a pair of ears up top. Actually, when I saw this first coming out, I thought it was said that this was based somewhat on the perfect grade Exia frame, but as far as I can see, this seems to be completely unique if I'm not totally missing something. Next up in here now, we've got some ear armor that just clips onto the ears just like so, simple as. And from here on out, it's just a case of clipping on all of the armor. We've got a back of head armor, we've got this tiny little mouthpiece, very typical mecha style. We've got this little segment then that attaches on over it, so it's nicely layered. And a little bit of light blue paneling from the side of the head, so that's slightly different in color to the ears. I did notice from a lot of images of this kit that there is some kind of like alternate crest for its head, which is in yellow and navy blue. And I can see that in the box, but there is no instructions as to how to use it as far as I can tell. And now it's time to finally pop on the head. Hopefully this won't be... Oh, that was nice and simple. There we go. One Frosty Cat. So now it's time to get started on some arms. So hopefully this won't be as awkward as I found it with the body. Here we go. So just like we've seen with the rest of the kit, we do have some piston action going on in the arms. So there is the upper arm snapping together. So far, so good. There's the piston locked into the elbow joint. Close that all up, and when you move that arm, that piston moves as well. Very nice. So down towards the wrist, we do have another joint, so that does mean we're going to have some decent articulation, and thankfully this is just snapping together perfectly, just like the legs did. Next up here, we've got a little bit of a mechanism that attaches in to what seems to be a kind of guard on the back of the arm. A little bit of a balancing act, kind of attaching this on, not the worst. And there we go, the basic structure of the arm. Next up, the armor layers on. I've already got one of these done, so I can tell you these actually work out quite well. Everything fits absolutely just like it should, like an absolute dream. One of my favorite aspects is the fact that this little piece of armor that goes on here doesn't actually cover the entire slot that it goes over, giving us a nice, very modern looking design right there with some grating inside of that. That's cool. Finally, this all finishes off with a little bit of a cuff down here, so everything supports this structure of the inner frame in a nice, perfect sort of way. This is impressive. Alright, so moving on up to the shoulders, we've got a kind of PVC polycap majigger here that pops on in like that. That then attaches into the bit that's going to be holding on the shoulder armor. And then we've got a kind of cover for over that down into the lower joint, and everything, again, sticks together perfect. We've then got some very nice rounded out armor which slots on over that. Then we've got some absolutely tiny little pieces that slot inside of that then in order to hold that armor on. Those are small. Lastly, then we do have this little ball joint here popping off the edge, and we have a choice of parts here. So you can put a big gray shoulder segment on, which looks just like this right here, or we've got this tinier, smaller little blue option here, but I'm gonna go with the white and pop this one on later on in the review when we're checking out the various options that we've got in here. Finally, then we're moving down to the hands. We've got a whole bunch of individual finger elements here, so these look like they're going to be some posable hands. So I just got completely lost in a world of my own while building these. I actually forgot to film the building of the hands. Anyway, they're all made out of multiple elements, which is the tip, the middle part, and then a joint that actually attaches into the hand itself. So these are very posable, not as posable as Bandai's perfect grade posable hands, but they're not nearly as delicate either. Plus, they're pointy, which is pretty damn rad. Look at that. Look at that. All we need to do now is add on the back, and there we go. Look at that gnarly kick-ass hand. Just get that attached, peg into hole, simple as, and that right there is the body of the Frosty Cat, 100% finished. So now jumping into the aesthetics, and I don't know where to begin here because this thing looks absolutely glorious. There's so much part separation, so much detail, even the inner frame has a ton of detail just like we just saw. When it comes to the colors, this is predominantly in white and dark navy blue. Both of those colors are split into at least two variants. So that is a pure white as well as a very light gray on the white that is super glossy. And when it comes to the blue parts, we've got a dark navy blue and a somewhat lighter navy blue, both of which look great and are in a kind of semi-gloss. All of the gray parts, including the inner frame, the fingers, some of the rigging round back, the cockpit, there's at least two shades there as well, if not three. I can see a lighter dark gray, I guess just a regular gray, and a dark gray. On top of that, we do have a whole lot of smaller clear parts. We've got a smoky black clear part in the crotch, we've got a yellow one, as well as 4 orange ones in the chest as well. Now this is without any of the options. I will mention this is a kit that does come with a whole bunch of options, some of which are mentioned on the box, and some of the actual aesthetic options are not for one reason or another. And the reason I believe is because these are a little bit Barbatos-esque, are they not? This kind of gives me a little bit of a Barbatos Lupus Rex vibe. The blue tips from the shoulders, the big yellow crest from the head with that diamond-shaped navy blue part in the center. We're going to try these out later on and see what we get. So even backing out a little bit more, once again, this looks phenomenal. The shape is great. We've got pistons all over the place. And I will mention there is no screw-ups on this kit besides that one critical flaw that I saw with the hip joint. But besides that, everything is molded perfectly. There's no issues with any of the plastic. Everything fits perfect and it looks glorious. This is premium quality right here, except that hip. Now I will mention one other aspect. I did not panelline this kit for the main reason that this is predominantly made out of ABS plastic. Now the panel liners I usually use to panelline my kits, the Gundam markers, the thin type Gundam markers, those you cannot use on ABS or it will crack and damage the plastic. So that is why I didn't do anything. This right here, believe it or not, is 100% straight built. But yeah, it is worth keeping in mind that this is made out of ABS because that can affect the way you approach this if you are going to paint it. Oh yeah, and it's got a big whopper of a massive tail with a wire in it that's fully posable with a big old yellow segment up top. And all of the yellow plastic on this, in case I forget to mention it later on, is a 100% UV reactive. So before I start into this review, I asked you guys to let me know if you have any questions about this particular kit, so I'm going to start with some that are aesthetics based. Number 1. So when it comes to the usual small, middle, and big when it comes to gunpla, that of course is high grade, master grade, and perfect grade, the Frosty Cat is considered 1/20th scale, but it does fit somewhere between master grade and perfect grade, and more so in the perfect grade direction. This still goes for the amount of plastic in the box, as well as the amount of detail on this thing's inner frame and outer armor, so essentially it's almost perfect grade, and feels like it too. So as for the plastic quality on this kit, it is extremely high. However, it is not like Bandai. I would actually say it's closer to some things I've seen from Kotobukiya, because it is mainly made out of ABS. ABS being a little bit more robust, but not really as easy to work with as the usual polystyrene you'd see in a Gundam kit, but it's nearly there. Yes, 100%, I love the fact that this kit has a cat as a pilot, and it's not just a cat as a pilot, it's a cat with a set of nuts as a pilot, and yes, I love it. So as for some perfect grade comparisons, that of course is the perfect grade Unleashed, and there is the perfect grade Strike Gundam. Moving this one out of the way. There is the Gundam 007 sword. Now, back to the Bandai versus this kind of argument, I would prefer to build this over and over again compared to this. I really do not like this perfect grade, and I think in general, this is better. Dangerously so. Basically, these, like I said during the build, can really poke you. These are sharp as sharp can be, and the same goes up here on the top of the head, but not as bad as the tail. Very sharp. So there was a couple of questions on molding issues, and besides that one in the hip, which is fairly bad, everything else is picture perfect. No screw-ups anywhere, so I guess it seems from what I'm seeing so far, it really is the luck of the draw with the Frosty Cat right here. Anyway, finally, to round it all off, there's the shelf presence test of the Strangeworks Frosty Cat, and this is huge, awesome, and will stand out in most collections unless you've got a ton of perfect grades and mega size. So now jumping into the accessories, and here's the Frosty Cat with absolutely everything that it comes with. And this box is fully loaded. We've got weapons, we've got a full massive stand, and we also have a bunch of different sort of almost cosmetic changes which give this kit a little bit of an upgrade sort of feel, which we'll take a look at the very end of all the accessories. There is so much you can do in here, it is ridiculous. Let's take a look at everything one by one. So first off, we're going to be taking a quick look at the hands, and these are articulated, which is very cool. We also have a swappable pair we'll take a look at later on for using with the accessories. It's definitely interesting that we only have the 3 fingers on here, and as for the articulation, we've got a joint up at the front. These are very stiff. They do feel very strong too. That's the ABS plastic. We've a joint closer to the hands, and you can get most poses out of these. The only thing I find a little bit limited is the thumb, which you can't actually lift up any further than that. It's always stuck because of the kind of joint right there. But on the whole, you can pull off everything that is important for those super dynamic poses. We also do have a bit of a mechanism in the wrist as well, which makes it very poseable for when it's holding onto the weapons. The fixed pose hands we have in here as well for holding stuff also has this joint, and these are just all round a very nice design. Swapping out the hands is super simple. It just pops out like so. We've got an extra long peg on these, just like that. And then the alternate fixed pose hands just attach on in the exact same way. So the first of the actual weapons we have in here is this absolutely glacier looking sword right here. This is huge. I was actually going to say I don't have a ruler, but this here cutting mat is literally a ruler, so it is 38 centimeters long. So this has a giant blue clear effect part for the blade, and the way this actually attaches in is very cool. There is no sandwiching to the hilt at all. It literally just pops on in and holds in with pressure. Now there is 2 colors of blade in here. We've got some jewels here and down here too. And also in here is the option to use these yellow effects instead. And you might be like, well, why use the yellow ones over the blue ones? There is one bit of an advantage. And the fact is this actually glows under blue or black light. So this will have some cool effects, especially under pure black light. Now this is just a LED light that is blue, and it's already getting it to glow very nicely. So if you do have some black lights, this will light the place up. So swapping out the blade for the yellow blade is actually quite simple. I'm not going to use it in this review, but the gem segments, not so simple. So I'd say choose one, and you're going to kind of be stuck with that, or mix and match. Attaching this into the hand is super simple. Pop off the thumb, then pop off the fingers, attach the sword into the fingers like so, reattach them back on, and then reattach the thumb. Now this holds onto the weapon absolutely perfectly, and the solid, perfect ABS frame on this particular mecha means this can hold it in any pose, even if the arms are totally extended. Now I wish I could have put it into a more dynamic pose, but because of the situation with the fact that the hip on mine is busted and I can't really freely pose it anymore, that is a little bit limiting. So I guess it's time for whipping out the absolutely gigantic stand. Now, the runner for this is one of the only things that actually says Nielsen works, because as I can tell from some pictures from before, this actually came with some of the bootleg Gundam kits, and this is an impressive stand. It's got a big, massive, nice, wide base. It is hollow, but at the same time, it's still very, very heavy. It is nice to look at with those extra little armored pieces here. This actually has a lot of nice moving parts too, like this mechanism here, which allows... Okay, it's very stiff. So it does have a mechanism which allows you to raise it up and down, but as of right now, it's super, super stiff. There it is, unlocked. But then again, I suppose it's better to be stiff than not able to hold up what it needs to hold up. There's also a little button up here which kind of locks and unlocks the movement on this here. And as for attaching the actual Frosty Cat, if you lift this little segment back here, just underneath that, we've got this nice little fold out segment under here which just pops out like so. That then just slots on into there like that. So finally, now that we've got it up on the stand, we can get this into a pose, and this feels so good. All the joints on this are fluid, they move nicely, they're tight as well at the same time. Everything feels spectacular. Now I did lose 2 pieces while I was actually getting this into the pose. There's the tip of the tail, because that is removable, and I did get a little bit of a drop in one of the wrists, but this is because I didn't realize when you actually unlock the wrists in order to get a more extended angle out to the front, it's easy to pop off one of the peg style joints. But besides that, this was seamless, perfect, and looks spectacular. I actually feel really, really sad that the hip on this isn't fully usable for this review, because this feels, looks, and is spectacular. I'm impressed so far, and that sword looks kick-ass. So when the sword is not in use, we actually have this cool little gizmo around back, which is essentially a little rig which allows this sword to be attached onto. So it just slides down into it just like so, attaches on like that, and this can actually be adjusted into whatever angle that you want. For example, coming over the Frosty Cat's shoulder so the hand can grab onto it just like so. That is pretty cool. Or you can completely collapse it in just like that for storage, and then it can be stored around back out of the way. So the next weapon that we have in here is this big old shield, and this is huge. This is also incredibly, incredibly detailed, and we've got all the colors we would have seen on the mecha so far, besides a huge splash of yellow. We also have one of those clear yellow effect parts in there that looks like it can glow somewhat under black light, and in order to attach this on, we do have a clip just in the underside right here that just pops onto the back of the arm fairly securely. I have had it slip a couple of times, but like nothing all that crazy. So that's pretty cool right there. So I don't actually know the story behind this here Mecha Frosty Cat at all, but this without a single doubt is a shield that can both attack and protect at the same time. These yellow sections are legit sharp, so be careful once again. And this looks ridiculously good. This is built like a brick shithouse. It's not going to fall apart. Just like the rest of the kit, it is rock solid, and it is very, very impressive. I did have a little piece that didn't really click into place towards the tip of one of those yellow sections, but that was it. I'm sure a little bit of bending, and it would be fine. And just in case you aren't a fan of the sudden yellow on this kit, there is a white option in here for using with all of these spiky bits. So if you wanted this to actually be white instead of the yellow, which I actually would have preferred. It actually showed the yellow inside of the instructions, so that's why I went with the yellow. But I think the white would have a really cool effect. So a lot of the aspects of this particular kit do remain unexplained inside of the manual. But one thing it does say is you're actually able to remove this little segment here with the gem, just like this. The whole shield still stays together, and that can be mounted onto the 2 pegs right here, like so. I'm not necessarily sure as to why. It does look very, very cool, but I'm not sure if in the lore or whatever behind the Frosty Cat right here, does that actually mean that when this is pulled off the back and attached to the arm, it then extends out into both of these claws, or what? I'm not necessarily sure, or if it's just an option to build it whichever way that you like. So I guess the Frosty Cat can't be a cat without some claws, and in here we've got these awesome, almost Wolverine-style beam effects. At least I assume they're beams. These are very, very nice looking. They catch the light very nicely. These are legit sharp, by the way, so be very, very careful. And we have an opening mechanism in the back of the forearms to allow these to attach. Now, personally, I couldn't get this opening mechanism to work at all. I actually had to take off the armor segment, then pull the whole thing out with pliers, so you might need to glue that in order to make it actually work. Unless something's meant to click, that didn't click. Anyway, then you just slot in the effect parts like so, and these look kick-ass. I know we just had a big massive claw already, but a pair of opening segments with beam claws is really, really cool. So I just noticed something right there. It's not mentioned in the instructions, but I wondered if this could actually come apart after that little segment was removed. And it turns out that it actually can. I notice we've got a peg here that just so happens to match with a hole I see up here. So can this use this as shoulder armor? Let's find out. And it turns out that you totally can. That is really, really cool. And I don't know why that's not mentioned in the instruction manual. So yeah, it just pops on, holds on tight, and it looks really, really cool. It's added a lot more yellow to the mobile suit than, well, the zero that was there already, and might match with some of the cosmetic changes we have coming up. Well, I guess right now. So inside of this box, we get enough parts to give the Frosty Cat right here a little bit of an almost mid-season update Gundam style, except a lot of these aren't really mentioned inside of the instructions. Well, the head crest mainly, the thing we're about to look at first, that is. So what we have to do here is strip off the side skirting armor, some parts off the shoulders, as well as the head armor. These were the side skirting armors we had before, very nice, but they're very compact. Now we're going to actually bring these to the next level by introducing these big waist binder segments. Now, these do require harvesting some parts off of the other version because it's a build one or the other style to this kit. So let's grab those parts and see where it takes us. So there's the Frosty Cat with everything attached onto it, and this definitely looks really cool, and it's added a lot more beefiness, and it looks more powerful than it would have before. First off, those thrusters round back really add a lot of nice bulk. They definitely look like they make it go a whole lot faster. Up on the shoulders are a lot more slender than they would have been before, which almost makes it look like it's a little bit more agile, but I have to say I did snap a tiny little segment on these while I was trying to attach them. These are incredibly delicate, and that's why I was trying to use pliers to support them. And anyway, I prefer the armor we had on already. Lastly, then we've got that new head crest in Barbatos yellow and navy blue, and that really is the vibe it's given it now, especially with the thrusters down near the side skirtings too, and that to me is awesome. This looks bestial, big, and powerful. I will mention, however, that the crest on the head right now is very low quality compared to the white one we would have had first. Now I see why they don't really mention it so much. It's a little bit flimsy. You can actually see where the navy blue parts actually attach on from behind, and it just feels a little bit not as secure on the head as what we had on there before. Still looks cool though, from a distance. So with this upgrade comes an upgrade in weaponry, and now we've got a pair of these, what pretty much look like a pair of energy or beam tomahawks. Attaching these into the hand is exactly like we would have seen with the various weapons so far. I mean sword, just sword. When they're popped into the hand, they look like this right here, and these are really cool. Honestly, the amount of Barbatos energy this, well, kit has. With that big crest on its head, it's looking very Lupus or Lupus Rex. With those big thrusters on the side skirts, that's also got a real Barbatos Lupus kind of feel. And with the extra little bit of blue up on the shoulders, that also has a bit of a Rex vibe too. I'm loving it. When these little tomahawks are not in use, just pop them out of the hand, remove the yellow beam segment, they can collapse slightly. Then if we go around to those new binders round back on the waist, well, you're able to actually pop open this top flap and then split these two armor segments open and move them back. Now we've got a little bit of a storage area for these. It pops in seamlessly, clicks in nicely, and then you can close it all up again and you wouldn't even know something was in there. That is some nice design and awesome engineering. So the amount of cosmetic choices and options in this box is ridiculous, and I love that about this kit. So not only do we have that Barbatos-esque looking head crest, we also have one in white. The black paneling on the side of this can be swapped out for the navy blue paneling we saw on the other one if you prefer, but I'm just trying to show everything as efficiently as possible. And if that was not cool enough, this is one of the coolest options we actually have in here. You can actually pop off the whole rigging on the back of the Frosty Cat like so. Then attaching on these two adapter little segments, you can now take the big binder segments which are on the rear skirting armor and pop them up onto the back like a set of wings. So this really does keep on evolving, this cat right here. It went from the Frosty Cat to an almost Barbatos looking mobile suit to an almost angelic looking mecha that just kicks major arse. Honestly, the amount of different options in here is actually killing me a little bit because I cannot decide which I like the best. When I built it as the Frosty Cat, I was like, this is it. I don't think I like any of the other options as much as this. Then I built it with the side waist thrusters and Barbie head, and then I was like, nope, this is it. This is the one I like. And now after popping all this stuff on, it looks like a mecha angel, and I want to keep it this way. Damn, you'd almost need 3. So lastly, now jumping into the articulation, and this is a hefty big kit, so it's going to be hard to keep in frame during this. Anyway, let's head, as usual, from the head down. As for the general gist about the actual build of this, besides the one hip that was bum out of the box, this is rock solid, and I've had no issues beside the one bit breaking up in the shoulder, but that felt like a break wrist straight away. So yeah, decide on what shoulders you want right at the beginning, because they're hard to attach, don't remove them. So in order to check out the articulation at the neck, I did switch back to the original Frosty forehead because it's less likely to pop off while moving it. There's the head all the way up, which is incredible because we've got multiple joints going on in here. We've got a ball joint up top, we've got a hinge below that, and the whole neck can hinge down on a piston as well, which is so nice. That is impressive. That is one hell of a giggity goo right there. And there's just a little bit of a close-up of that piston action. So the pistons work in the lower joint, but we've got even more than that in there. Beautiful. Inside the chest, we do have a fully opening cockpit. That's a hatch up top. And then this lower segment here that pulls out like so to let us see that little cat that's piloting the mecha in there. Now that is one of the most unique and awesome things I've ever seen in a mecha model kit. I love that. More of that kind of humor, please. Please! So on the sides of the chest, we've got these little bits here that move back and forward just like so. Now on mine here, these are a little bit tight and restricted because the assembly was a little bit more awkward than I'd initially expected. So these parts didn't sandwich down so great. But anyway, that's what that can do. As for the actual shoulder itself, that can swing all the way out and in from there, which is nice. So what that actually gets us is a shoulder that moves in and out like so. We've got the full 360 spin right there as well. Next up, the shoulder armor can move up and down like so. We would be able to move this little armor flap right there, but again, this did break. Next up, there's the arm raised all the way up. So we've got a joint inside of the actual torso and up here as well. So that is some nice range of movement. Next up, we've got a full 360 spin at the upper arm. With the arm off now for clarity, there is the double jointed bend at the elbow. So that is very nice. And we do have a secondary joint near the wrist here, which bends it even more. So that is a lot. On top of that then, we've got a second rotation right here, which really gives a lot of posing potential. It's really nice. Changes the kind of bend of the arm as well, so you can get a lot of nice shapes out of that. And then the wrist has the flexion extension. We've got this as well, which is extremely nice, adding to the posability on this. And like we saw earlier on, every single finger features a whole bunch of articulation as well, making this so expressive. I love it. So now checking out what we've got at the torso. So there is the ab crunch all the way to the front. That seems to be 2 joints, one down below, one right there. So that is very nice. So there's all the way to the back, all the way to the front. Very nice. And then we've got a side to side tilt in here as well, which really gives you a lot of expressive, nice options out of that. Down here at the skirting armor now, and it is mounted around on the rear, which is a nice little design. That means it can move up and down out of the way like so. Now this is attached via a ball joint, so you get some motion out of that as well. And when we have the alternative smaller skirting on, you also have a ball joint around back. Now one of the coolest aspects about this kit is without a doubt the tail. So first off, we've got this very robust joint here that allows us to move up and down like so. And then we've got a powerful, super strong wire inside of the tail, which makes you get whatever you want out of this all of the time. It is super expressive. Now, I don't know how well the wire will hold up to constant bending and bending and bending and bending, so I say don't move it too much because like a wire can be, it will eventually get weak at some point and break. But either way, that is pointy and awesome. So down here inside the waist, we've got this nice little moving aspect which allows this section with the hip joint to actually move forward like so. That's good and strong. and that adds to the kind of whole ab cruncher haunch kind of look you can get out of this. So with that hip joint at the lower setting, there's the kick all the way up to the front, which is incredible. There it is all the way out to the back, super nice, graceful, and awesome. And there it is then all the way out to the side. So you won't get the full splits, but you'll get next to close to it, and it looks gorgeous to boot. The leg also has a pivot right up here at the upper leg. Now with the leg off, testing that knee bend, and we've got a really nice sliding mechanism in the armor. Look how nice that looks. So that's the full bend. And once again, closing that up, you can see the way all the armor slides together ever so nicely. Beautiful. We've got a little bit of an armor flap right here. That is kind of loose, but that does allow the foot to move. And the same goes with this little bit of armor around back here. And just to add to the sheer awesomeness on this, there is a piston here that actually does move when you slide this. And there's some pistons around the, well, a single piston around back that when you actually move the foot, that closes and opens as well. So now getting the foot on the ground to test the functional movement, as in how far can the leg move forward without the foot coming off the ground. And we get all the way to there, which is very nice. Toe still on the ground. All the way out to the back then we get to there. Again, very, very nice. And as for the side-to-side pivot, it goes from there, it seems, all the way back to there. Probably a little bit more too. Let's see. Can I get some more? No, that is it. And that is beautiful. I mean, check out that barrel joint in there. Another Gundam frame looking aspect. So when it comes to the articulation on this, I am so impressed and at the same time super bummed by the fact that the hip on this was defective. That's a very critical joint, so it does mean posing this is nigh on impossible. So that means what you could potentially get out of this if it was perfect would be mind-blowing, but I can't really get that right here. But here's the best example I can try to get out of it right now. And once again, ignoring the hip, it's extremely, extremely impressive. So anyway, that right there is it for the review, and when it comes to the 1/20th scale Frosty Cat by Strangeworks, this is 100% Gundarium tier. At least it would be if it wasn't defective out of the box, so fuck you, Strangeworks, you're not getting it. Defective aspects do suck, and, you know, they happen to the best of them. I actually got the perfect grade Strike Freedom Gundam once before, and the reason it's not in my collection is the fact that one of the runners, if not I think two of the runners for the wings, were actually incomplete. They look like this right here, but I don't actually have a picture of it. This is my first time ever seeing someone post one of these online since I got a defective perfect grade Strike Freedom. So a Japanese friend of mine actually rang up Bandai to try and kind of complain about it, and they just said, we don't make mistakes, and that's it. Got no replacement parts. But either way, like I said, defective parts can happen to the best of them, but nothing is worse than actually shelling out for something, getting it, and then it turning up defective. So I'm going to actually contact the people that I got this from, which is Gundam Model Center, or also known as Gundam Central, and see what they can do about replacement parts. So I'm going to actually hold off on ranking this, and I will do an update in a later video on how it turned out. If this kit was whole, if it wasn't missing that one tiny little piece, it would be Gundarium tier through and through, and the single best non-Gundam kit I have ever built, which would make it, in my opinion, a better plastic model kit than the Zero Gravity Judge, because I've had less issues with it, besides that hip, and in a way the Zero Gravity Judge isn't necessarily a plastic model kit per se, because it does have a die-cast action figure kind of frame inside of it. So as plastic model kits go, this is the best non-Gundam one I have ever built, but the caveat being, it was defective. Anyway, do you have one of these? Have you built one of these? How did yours turn out? Did you have any defective aspects? And if not, how awesome was it? Anyway, if you do want one of your own, I will throw a link to where I got it down there in the description. Of course, thank you so much to Raid Shadow Legends for making this possible, and as always, I will see you next time.